Good morning again. All right, folks, we're going to get started. Good morning again. Welcome. I want to preface this. The presentation that I'm going to be giving comes from a place where, in 2003, two former professors of mine from seminary who like to travel were thinking of putting together a Steps of Paul trip involving Greece. And I guess I would call it a continuing education event, but it was more of a vacation because it turned out to be a fantastic time where airline from Chicago to Istanbul, then to Athens, Izmir, and then back to Istanbul. 5-star accommodations, and some of the best tours that I've ever been on was for $2,500. Right. Who said, whoa? Yeah, seriously. I mean, unfortunately, this trip will run you $4,800. And we were lucky in that in January, it's the off-season in this part of the world. And yet, everywhere I looked, there was a palm tree, which was fantastic. By the way, people from Minnesota, outside of McLeod County, there is sun and the weather is nice, and there's things called palm trees, and they have coconuts, and they give you stuff. So our trip began in Chicago, and we were flying through Turkish Airlines. This is a brand new 787-9. This is one of the best airline and most efficient planes in the world, and yet I still had to sit in a 17-inch seat for 18 hours. No, it was more like 13, but right. And we left. So I had left on the 5th, afternoon of the 5th, flew to Chicago, and on the 6th got to O'Hare, checked in, and you know how it's like you make all the preparations and you get through TSA, and then you're like, now what? I got 3 hours. I recommend the Bloody Marys at O'Hare. So I need a drink before I get on a plane. So our flight was a couple hours late, and of course they never tell you why. So when we got into Istanbul, and we're flying into time, all of our connections had to be rerouted. So we got on a couple small little planes, but we got to Athens. So why don't you go ahead? Yeah, we met upstairs for supper, and that was in front of us. Anybody ever been to Greece? Raise your hand. Okay. So when we see this, what are we looking at? Well, the Parthenon and the Acropolis. No, this is going to be a community event. This is the Parthenon on the Acropolis. Acropolis is a Greek word for hill or mountain. Parthenon means temple. So this is the temple of Athena. Athena, in the pantheon of gods, she is the goddess of Zeus, who is the master king god, and she is the protector. Greece today is roughly 11 million people. Between 3.5 and 4 million live in Greater Athens. Athens is centered in between 3 different mountains, and it's a gorgeous view. So go ahead, next. That is the morning, and then we were heading out, and you can see the sheer cliffs coming off of that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Next. Here we have Alexander the Great. Alexander, son of Philip of Macedon, who may be credited to be one of the best generals in history. We can't forget the history of the places that we go and that we live. Now, a lot of you know that I grew up in Connecticut, and I grew up in some of the places that are 250, 300, 350 years old. In the town that I grew up, is where Washington and some of his corps slept. We're talking about something that's nearly 2,500 to 3,000 years old. To have that history and that culture, I used to, when I was a kid, go to cemeteries and we would take charcoal on some very loose paper and we would do prints of early, and when I say early, I'm talking like 17th century mausoleums and cemeteries. This is a part of their life. This is something that they see every day, and this is a history that they have and a history that they hold on to. So go ahead, next. We have to remember, this is the original Olympic Coliseum. And over the thousands of years that it's gone, it has been preserved. And the story goes that a Greek man, maybe a slave, ran from a battle 26.2 miles to give the news to the generals. Do you know what happened after he told them? Oh, he didn't die. He was killed. So the next time you go for a run, remember that. So, yeah. Next. Yeah. Here is one of the mountain outcrops. And then I wanted to have it next to a palm tree. At the top, the Greek Orthodox, but also the Turkish Orthodox we'll get to, they believe the higher you are, the closer you are with God. And the higher that you can build something, that means the closer you are with your deity. This is an active monastery on top of the building. This is 1,800 feet. And you're looking at like something mid-15th, 16th century, and it's still going on this day. And it's got a beautiful view across the city. Go ahead. So you've got 3.5, 4 million people in the city. The Greeks and the Turks, they love outside. They love having the availability of leaving their pad or their apartment and going out and sitting outside like we do in our backyards or something that we have built. The concentration of people in this area is phenomenal. And I'm going to make a statement. That's the size of a street right here. You see that funny looking car? That's normal. And the vehicles that they have to have smaller vehicles because their economy, and I have to watch the way I use words right now, it's pretty dismal. They have a very loose economy, and they were just recently brought into the European Union, but a couple years ago, their banking system failed, and the country almost went belly up. I make a joke that we're here in town, gas is $2.78 a gallon. You're working on like $9 a liter for gasoline. And a lot of people need their vehicles, but not a lot of people use a bike because the roads are so thin, because if it's versus you in a truck, the truck usually wins. So, go ahead. This is the academy. Academy meaning this is where, in the 19th and 20th century, this is where the knowledge came to Greece before it became an independent state in the 1920s. And they want to be able to hold on to their rich tradition of thought, but also of intelligence and of science. So they put together beautiful, beautiful buildings to support that. This is basically Athens University, if you want to call it that. But, how cool would it be to walk into that every day? All right, go ahead. Another picture, and that's one of their libraries. Go ahead. This is the parliament. This is the Greek parliament. And I want you to notice at the bottom, do you see those two little things with blue on the top and they're white? Go to the next slide. This is their tomb of the unknown soldier. This is their tomb. And behind them, they honor the dead. And then the Greek soldier, how he's all decked out in his, it's a funny looking outfit, but it's a funny looking outfit with their history and the way that they go about life. And I wasn't able to see the changing of the guard, but has anybody ever seen the Tomb of the Unknown? How solemn an event that is? They do that every couple hours as well. You did? Okay. It's just breathtaking, isn't it? Right, yeah. And then they're funny little balls at the end of their shoes. So, all right, go ahead. This is a surviving and only remaining piece to a temple dedicated to Zeus. Now, I want you to imagine 2,500 years ago that this is a complete temple that just keeps going back and back and back. But what thing you might notice is there's not a lot of ruin here. That's because a lot of the pieces that have fallen have been repurposed to other places. And that's what the Greeks and the Turks are known for. So, continue. We are at the base of the Acropolis. Anybody like olives? One of the best and greatest exports of Greece are olives, but also olive oil. And everywhere was an olive tree. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, especially when we get to Turkey. We still have probably a good another 80 feet at least in elevation to go. So it's one of these meandering paths. And also, when you think of marble, what does marble look like? Smooth. It's carved. It's smooth when the sun's out. When it's raining, it's very, very slippery. Especially when we get to Ephesus, we'll talk about that. So that's just a beautiful shot. Continue on. Odeon. This is the original Odeon in Athens. Odeon means amphitheater. Anybody Yanni fans? He's got some great music. He's got some really good music, or Zamfir on the flute. Imagine U2 sitting at the bottom of that. The Who, the Rolling Stones, they came to this place. They played there. This is still an active amphitheater at the base of the Acropolis. And the acoustics are phenomenal. Go ahead. So this is referred to as the gate. I wish you could see how. I wish you could see the corners and the architecture of how this is. This is 2,500 years old in these pictures, and just looking at how slippery it is. Now, our group, there were 65 of us, mostly pastors, rostered leaders throughout the country, and spouses. And our tour guides are archaeologists. And I'm not talking about like Indiana Jones. I'm talking about academic archaeologists, where their job is to go into the history. And they love this, and they would support it, and they would tell us that. So we're going to go up the gate. Go ahead. Okay, another one. Keep going. Now, once we get through, we have the Parthenon. The Parthenon has had many, many iterations, probably about 2,500 years old. In former years, I want you to imagine that this is painted on the sides and on the friezes. You can actively see the scroll work that the artisans had put together, and it's telling a story as you go around. And at one time, there was a gold, and I want to say it was about 18 feet tall, Athena standing there with her shield, and her spear was guarding the city. But nobody ended up guarding her. And what happened is, about over centuries, things started to break, things started to fall down. And then also, as most recent as like 1847, somebody thought it was a good idea to take all the gunpowder that they had in Athens and put it in the middle of the Parthenon. Well, an invader coming in from, I think it was outside of Venice, found out, and what did they do? They started using the Parthenon for target practice. And they hit the inside, and it blew it out. What we have left today are the original structures, and there's an active archaeologist putting it back together. But they also want to keep it because they recognize they're one earthquake away from everything being destroyed. And in this part of the world, and when we get to Ephesus, I'll talk more about it, seismic activity matters. It really does, and things have changed. Next. This right here, this is a very, very famous temple that was to Athena, but it was also to one of the other gods. And I want you to take a look at the 5 women that are carved out as columns here. Now these are, anybody been to London and the London Museum? Most of the stuff you're going to see in the world comes from the places that I've been, and they stole it, or they took it. They're trying to get it back, but the English government's like, it's fine here. These are recreations of what the original columns looked like. Inside, the space is maybe a little bit smaller than in here, but it's just breathtaking how beautiful and how well carved and preserved they are today. Next. A view from the west. I think this is from the west. Which direction does the sun rise? East. And when the sunlight hits, that's the gods waking you up to another day, right? Most times these things are facing towards where the sun are, so they get the view in the morning. You can go in there, you can walk around, but I like being on the outside looking at everything else. And I want you to take a look at the friezes that you can see at the top where the pillars are. That's telling a story. Because you remember, the people that are coming here, not a lot of people can read. Not a lot of people knew what was going on. So they had to have visuals explaining what was going on. I also made a joke with somebody, and they laughed really hard. That's a long way up the hill to kill a goat. What would you do? If you were a good, devout Greek, whatever, you'd take your animal and you'd go up and you would sacrifice. That's what they would do. We'll talk more about sacrifice when we get to Corinth. Next. Okay, keep going. Another shot from the side. And when you're looking here, you can see in the back, you can see the elevation where Athens is in the valley between the mountains. Next. Hi, Mom. I would send pictures of the kids in the morning with Amy. So, next. Again, living at the top of the hill, closer to God. Next. Another picture of one of the temples on the side. Next. Okay, so when you come down the hill, we're going to go to a place right now. It's called the Areopagus, also referred to as Mars Hill. Who was Mars in the Roman pantheon? God of war, right. You ever been to like New York City or something and you see all the people dressing up? Here's a Greek soldier. But what's funny is right behind it, you're going to see that slab. And that slab is written in Greek, and it is Luke, the Gospel Luke's author, account of Acts chapter 17. So let's go to the next. Okay, that's the Acts chapter. Next. Okay, this is where the intellectuals went. They went to the top of this hill. Now, it astounds me over the thousands of years that it's been here. It's still a place where you can fall and screw up your knee, hurt your toe, do something. But this is where, according to Luke's account of Paul being in Greece, this is where Paul comes to the people and says, put away your pagan gods and know that there is the one God. Know that there is the one Jesus Christ. Know that there is the one who died for you and for everybody. But the Greeks have a God for everything. And in their pantheon, there are 12 major gods. Don, I want you to convert from your 12 to my 1 because it's better. It didn't go over well. This is a sacred space where the man Paul, who we have to remember was a Jew, but he was also a pastor. And the man Paul, he grew up as a Pharisaic Jew. He grew up with the understanding of the learned Jewish people. He knew the Torah. He knew the law. He knew a whole bunch of things about being what it meant to be a Jew. He also persecuted and killed Christians. And we forget that. And then on the road to Damascus, he has the conversion or the revelation where Christ comes to him, and for 3 days he goes into a locked room and he learns and then comes out and he's a new person. This is where he goes. This is the place. And he goes to the place and he starts having conversations. Because what did the Greeks do? They used their oratory, they used their mouth to share. And it took a long time. It took a long time for people to come over and make the conversion. But put away your pagan gods. It's in there in Acts 17, and I recommend you take a look at it. Next page. Caroline and Michael, our two professors. You're going to see a lot of graffiti. Athens is a beautiful city, and graffiti is everywhere, and it is illegal. But it happens so often that everybody does it. Another thing you're going to see are cats. Anybody like cats? Feral cats are everywhere. And you know a cat has been neutered because what they do is they trim part of the ear, and there's a little triangle piece cut out of it. But that's an identifier because there's such a population. They're all over the place. Behind where my colleagues are, we're going to go down to what's called the Agora, the marketplace. Next. Okay, so here we have what's referred to as the Agora. Now, I want you to think about what happens to something over 2 millennia. Not centuries, millennia. 2,000 years. Well, anybody ever witness a field get blown away? Or anybody ever lived on a farm where you knew that things used to be at a higher elevation, but the wind comes in, the rain over time? This spot here, up until the later 19th century, was just a plain. It was dirt. And what occurred is that over time, it had just filled in. Dirt, erosion. And then somebody finds something one day when they're digging around, and what they turn up is part of the ancient city. So there's been an active archaeological dig in the middle of Athens since the later 1900s. Or excuse me, later 1800s, early 1900s. And what they found was a marketplace. They found a marketplace where people would come to trade. They would buy things. They would talk. They would persuade. The burly Greek men who wanted to convert people would stand up on a pillar and they would tell them their story. Now we have the original part of the city. Go next. Okay, so I want you to remember in the first century, who's in charge? Rome. But where are we? Greece. It's still a Roman colony. And it has a very militaristic feel to it, because who is in charge of Rome? Caesar. So we get the emperors Domitian, Nero. We get Hadrian later on in the 2nd century. And, you know, they just couldn't take a selfie of themselves and, like, put it up on the wall. So what do? You have somebody carve your likeness. You're going to see a lot of different Greek and Roman generals, rulers, especially the guy named Hadrian, where we're going to see in a couple moments. So keep going. This is the temple of Hephaestus. Hephaestus is the Greek god of what? He's the guy that would make weapons. He's the guy that you see the bellows, and he's making armor. He has his own temple. Lucky him. Next. Hadrian, 2nd century. He liked having his name all over the place. And one of the things that Hadrian did is he expanded the Greek Empire. Anybody ever seen Hadrian's Wall in England? I learned about that as a 7th grader. I learned my first word that I learned in Latin, agricola, means farmer. Hadrian was responsible for that. He made and he pushed the empire, but he also pushed it east, and he pushed it more into Turkey as well. Plus, they look pretty good in a skirt. Next. This is the view of the Acropolis from the bottom. Now, I want you to imagine, instead of going to Coburn's one day, you go to the stall. What are you going to get? You're going to get your fruits and vegetables. You're going to get your rabbit. You're going to get your pork chop. You're going to get water. Okay. This is where you did it. And you had the temple of the gods watching over you as you watch them above you. That feels pretty cool. Next. Temple of Hephaestus. Never mind, keep going. Just the sides and telling the story on the friezes. Keep going. Parthenon in the back. Continue. Okay. This is where democracy began. I want you to imagine that this space, which is smaller than in this room, this is where the democratic republic began. There used to be pillars here, and in the middle was where the people would come, men, and they would plead their case. And they would talk about the things that we do for the people, the things that we do for Civic. Anybody own a Honda Civic? You know what civic means? People. That's what it means. Not like Nova, which means no go, but that's a different story. Civic means people. It means for the populace. I learned something, and I want to share this with you. Does anybody know what the etymology is for the word idiot? I'm not making this stuff up, folks. An idiot, or idiota, was a person that only cared about themselves. An idiot was a person that only cared for his or her and not the other. So the next time you call somebody an idiot or yourself, think about that. That's where it comes from. It has a Greek balance, and it comes from this place. It was kind of cool because the hair on the back of my neck was popping up going, that's where it began, and that's where it spread because so many people enjoyed it. Next. This is a site of an 11th century Byzantine monastery. Now, remember, Rome fell on or about, 476? And why did Rome fall? Because the Ottomans came in, the Byzantines came in, and when Rome split, Caesar used to have two houses. One was in Rome and the other was where? Constantinople, what we call modern-day Istanbul. Constantinople becomes the center of the influence for the Eastern Empire for centuries. The Byzantines rise up, and they swallowed up parts of Greece. Next. Who likes lamb? Pork, beef. You ever go to a hero shop? And we call them gyros or heroes, where they just like carve the lamb off that. This place was good. Feta cheese, olives. I mean, we just like gorged. And I took a picture of watching these guys cook, and it was just cool because everything that they needed was like right here, and they just threw it all together. So, next. Okay, so the guy that runs the tour group, his name is Elias Nouwen. He was born in Jerusalem, which is occupied Palestine in Israel. He and his family left Palestine and he moved to Marietta, Georgia. But one of the things that they were talking about on this trip was, we got to go to this place called Razzouk Tattoo, because the family has been in business since the 13th century. I want you to think about that. How old is that? That's like 700 years. The family has passed down the artistry of tattoos. And I also think it's interesting because it started in Jerusalem, and if you're a Jew, you're not supposed to mark your body, but that's a different story. When in Rome, got to go get a tattoo, right? So go ahead, next. What they do is the original designs they have on templates, and they put them on rubber stamps. And I got the Jerusalem cross with the laurel on one side, and you can see the olive branch on the other. Go to the next. And this talks about the Jerusalem cross. There are many, many different iterations or what it's for. But the guy who was in Jerusalem, one of the sons, he moved to Athens. And about 2 or 3 years ago, he set up a shop. And there were about 15 of us. And we were sitting there, and we were getting inked up, and there was a really nice bar that they own right next door. I was hoping that we would get a discount rate. I still had to shell out $230, but, you know, it's part of the process, right? But, yeah, next. Okay, that's us just getting on the bus. Next. Okay, that's what our bus looked like. And you're going to notice it's not so much as wide as it is what? Tall, because we got to get through these spaces. And I had some really good friends on our coach. I just want to show you what that looked like. So, next. Throughout the city, including the graffiti, a lot of beautiful artwork. And I love this. I love this picture. This is a, 8-9-story building? That must have taken a lot of time, but there was something about it that just struck me as being very, very holy. And it's not praying up to God, but it's what? God looking down on us, right? Yeah. So, next. Okay, so we are on the way north. So we are going to head to the place called Kalabaka, which we're heading up to the monasteries. One of the things that I really enjoy is elevation, and I enjoy mountains. And, you know, living on the prairie, that's a little hard, right? Unless you would get north of St. Cloud. I forgot what real mountains looked like. So we're gonna head north. We're gonna go up into the area that's referred to as Thessaly, which is northwest Greece. Next. Okay, those got snow on the tips. All right, so they're growing olives on the ground, and they're climbing the mountains. Keep going. Keep going. All right, that's just a sample countryside, very sparsely populated, because again, nearly half of the population lives in one place through the rest of the country. Next. Okay, cypress trees. Next. All right, we are getting towards something. I want to talk a little bit about some history. Anybody ever seen the movie 300? Frank Miller did it, about 20 years old, and it's the story of, and it's a great movie. It's a really good movie. The second one, not so much, but It's very bloody, but it's the story that depicts King Leonidas, who is the king and leader of Sparta. And Sparta are who? Sparta are the savage men that are trained from early childhood to be warriors. The Spartans are against the Persians. This man named Xerxes, who is the king god, believes that he can take the whole Persian, and when I say Persia, I mean Iran, Iraq, parts of Turkey, and influence west into the Mediterranean. The Spartans say, no. The Athenians, which is a city-state that's below them, are mostly farmers. They're mostly craftspeople. They do a lot of trade, but the Spartans are all about the war. Well, Xerxes is going to invade Greece, and he wants to come down and he wants to take from the north. So the Spartans, 300 of them, and 100 Athenians head to this place that's called Thermopylae. Thermopylae, it means the gates, the hot gates. Go ahead, next slide. Go back two, I'm sorry. Go back, next. The hot gates are, and it's really weird as you drive by because you're looking and there's steam coming out of the ground. Sulfur, natural sulfur springs are there, and I want you to imagine the Aegean Sea. So you're on a mountain cliff, and there's a little piece of land, and it's the ocean. That's what it looked like. Now, over 2,000-3,000 years, what has happened? Erosion. The sea has gone out, so there's not as much of a place anymore for to come in. And Xerxes tells his armies to meet the Spartans at this place, and the Spartans are trained, and what do? For 3 days, they hold off the Persians. For 3 days, they hold off. There's 400 of them versus thousands and thousands of people. Eventually, the Persians get them because they take a goat path around and they trap them. But a lot of good tactics, a lot of wonderful history, and it's a really good movie. All right, go ahead, two. So we're on the way, and then we come to this place that makes iconography. Icons. Icons are sacrosanct to the Greek Orthodox and the Turkish Orthodox Church because what do? They show Jesus, they show the apostles, they show Mary, they show things in history that have been put together and they have been painted. And inside the monasteries, the churches, they're all over the place and they tell a story. Next slide. This man right here is describing, and he's holding an icon, and his father, you see him, and he's wearing the really cool black hat. He is a Greek Orthodox priest. Greek Orthodox priests, they can marry, they can have families. But once they have their first kid, they cannot ascend. They can't go any higher. Because you may have heard the term patriarch. Each respective church has a patriarch, or like the Pope of the Roman Catholic. This man, go to the next slide, is showing us that in 1982, I believe it was, John Paul II commissioned this man to create this icon. It's in the Vatican. And John Paul II and his team found this man because he is so famous for creating iconography. And then once you get the icon, then you can copy them. But he made the original. Fascinating story. I got a couple from myself and my wife. I've got one in my office. I love iconography because it has a specific recipe where it has to be made this way. And it's only in 2 dimensions, but it looks like it could be in 3. But it's painted specifically. It's gold lidden. They're absolutely beautiful. Go ahead, next. And then he signed them, So he autographed them and then put the Alpha and the Omega, the Greek beginning and the end, and a little prayer on that. Go ahead, next. The funny part is, this place was over a gas station. Yeah, and you're driving by and you're like, what? So I want you to think of like a Casey's and then an Icon shop above it. It was weird. They were changing tires and it was really cool. So next. All right, we are now outside of Kalabaka. So we're going to go back 60 million years. 60 million years ago, this part of Greece was underwater. And what occurred is that something happened here in this part of the world, which nobody can explain, where sedimentary rock started really crushing on itself. Now, as the waters recede, as time progresses, that's what we got. Next. Okay, another part of the mountain. All right. And then, keep going. Now you're going to start seeing pillars of sedimentary rock just coming up out of the ground. I'm not talking like hundreds of feet. I'm talking like thousands of feet. And it just absolutely blows your mind. Keep going. Okay, you're looking at this from probably a good 3 or 4 miles, giving you that idea of what that space looks like. And in Greece, they have rotaries too, so I didn't like that, but yeah, keep going. All right, keep going. Now, do you see anything at the top of those? Do you see any like pointy little things or things? You're going to start seeing the monasteries. Next. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, that's what it looks like from a olive vineyard, which is basically everywhere. Next. Okay. All right. Keep going. Keep going. Next. Next. All right. So we're going to the St. Stephen's Monastery. Anybody ever seen the 1979 movie For Your Eyes Only? James Bond. There is a good part of the movie that was filmed here, and I'll show you where. Next. Okay. We're about 1,800 feet above sea level right here. This is St. Stephen's Monastery, one of 14 or 15 monasteries that began in the 14th and the 15th century in this place called Meteora, where we are. Meteora simply means a view of the gods, or you're above the world. Next. Go to the next slide. Yeah, that's like 300-400 feet down. During this time in Byzantium, the Holy Fathers left the big cities and they headed north. And they came to this place called Meteora because not only is it so beautiful, but they said, if we can get closer and higher than somebody else, we will be closer to God. So what they started doing is creating and building monasteries where 7 of them still exist that are being run today. Next. That's just straight sheer cliff right down the and by there's cats all over the place. Next. Okay, that's the little bit of the story. Keep going. That's what Kalabaka looks like from the top. And we're not even really at the top yet. You see how far down that goes? Next. Sheer cliffs. If you don't like flying on a plane, you're not going to like looking over this. But again, remember, the higher you are, that means the closer you are to God. And if the closer you are to God, that means the more love you're going to get. Kind of like sitting up in the front with me on a Sunday, right? Yeah. So, hermits that would just run away from life would go to these places, and they would literally build a little hovel in the side of a wall and live. And they would pray all day. And I'm talking about the size of something a little bit bigger than the altar up here. And they would give themselves to God. And they would live in the sides of the hills. Next. All right, keep going. Okay. Next. Next. Keep going. Okay. Next. All right. This is the monastery of the Holy Trinity. This is the monastery that was in For Your Eyes Only. And if you know the movie and if you know the sheer cliffs going down, there's only two ways of getting up there. And today there's only a rope bridge that brings you across. And it's still an active monastery. And the brothers and some of the nuns, the sisters that live and work there, they go back and forth, bring in the provisions. But I want you to figure out, it's the 1400s. How do you get a rock? I mean, how do you do that? How do you do that? It is a miracle how they put these things together. I have this as my phone, on my phone. All right, next. And then my buddy Adam took a picture. What do you see there? Holy Spirit, right? Isn't that beautiful? Look at the sunlight. The sun is going down, and it's shining on what? The monastery. Yeah. Next. All right, remember that you are stronger, that you seem braver, and that you believe and you are smarter than you think you are. Next. Now we're at the bottom when we're looking up. Continue. Okay, keep going. Next. So the next day we go on another tour, and I was talking about the hermits that lived in the sides and then the little carve-outs. You see those little things that they look dark? That's where people lived. That's where people gave themselves to God, and they lived out their faith there. Plus, I like the Jerusalem cross with it. So, next, continue. Okay, evolution's pretty cool. Next, again. Okay, there's some more up there. All right, now we're going to go back up the hill. Keep going. Okay. Hi, Mom. And then we're going to this one. Seriously, looking out one of the windows was a 1,000-foot drop. And it's still an active church community this day. And they welcome worshipers on Sunday mornings. Next. All right, so we're going to go inside and we're going to take a look at it. This is a 15th century Byzantine monastery. Next. And the brothers and the sisters that work there, live there, very particular about everything, including their flowers. Next. Yeah, just imagine walking out your back door, having your cup of coffee, just looking at that. Yeah. Next. Keep going. Okay. Inside the monasteries themselves, very dark, but most of the iconography, gold, silver, that is still on the walls, is being cleaned up, and it's in good shape. But you'll notice the stories in each of the icons. They tell a different story of what's going on. Because the people that are coming here, they can't what? Read. And they only know the Greek or the Latin that's being said to them, but do they know what it means? Well, the icons, they tell the story. Continue. Next. Hi, Mom. Next. Somebody made that, the Bondastery. It's pretty funny. Actually, I sent that to you, didn't I? Yeah. Go ahead. All right. So we get down, and before we're going to leave, we've got about an hour and a half to go and have a meal. So some colleagues and I, we went to go find this place that's like off the beaten path, because you're always going to find the best food there. And we ended up in a outdoor market. Next. Anybody ever seen a 2-foot tall leek? These things were huge. I thought they were just like this at Coburn's. People yelling, people screaming, people having fun, trying to give away. A lot of fruits and vegetables. Next. Big old tomatoes. Next. Hi, Mom. Okay, that's something I just put in there. Andrew says hi. All right. Yep. Okay, so we leave Kalabaca, we head back, and now we're going to Corinth. We're going to Corinth, which is southwest, and it's situated between the Aegean Sea and the Ionian Sea. So I want you to think about, if this is the Mediterranean, Aegean, Ionian, and this is where Corinth is a trade partner. Corinth is a port. Next. 11th century Greek Orthodox monastery. Next. Yep. So we're driving by. Keep going. All right. Now, there's two ways to get to this area, and it's referred to as the Peloponnesus. You may have heard the Peloponnesian Peninsula. That is referred to. There's only two ways of getting your stuff to Corinth. Either you get in a boat and you go around the Aegean into the Ionian, or you go through a canal. This canal is about 80 meters deep. That's been carved out, and it goes between one part of the world to the next. It's still an active canal today, though most still go around because you got to pay a toll through it. Of course you have to. Next. Next. You know what? There's a lot of things in our country that we don't have and we should. Bacon Pringles is one of them. Next. All right, so we are crossing into the Peloponnesian Peninsula here. Next. Okay. Corinth is at the base of a mountain on a seaport, and this is called the Arco Corinth. At the top, you can't see it, but there is a military encampment. This was a base where the Greeks would keep their soldiers up, and they would watch over what's coming in, either through the land, but also through the sea. Next. Arco Corintho. Next. All right, so now we're going to ancient Corinth. We're going to the site. Next. All right, up to your left, top left, that is the temple of Apollo. Apollo is the Greek god who not only helped the sun go up and down, but he was one of the children of Zeus. He is the main deity of Corinth. So let's keep going. Keep going. All right, so we're going to go in the museum. Go. Okay. Once upon a time, if you had enough money and you wanted to let people know that you were dead, but you were still important, what did you do? You had a ossuary carved out of marble, and they put your remains in there, and maybe they put you in a field, maybe they put you in your backyard, wherever, but you were dead, but you were still there, right? Next. Okay, and another thing you would do is if you were rich, you would also have a likeness carved. Instead of what we have as a headstone today, you would have a body stone. Some had heads, most did not, but it provided privilege and showed that you were important. Next. Anybody notice anything interesting about the thing that's on the bottom? You can't necessarily see the inscription on the top. It's exactly what it is. There are 3 menorahs. Now remember, during this time, 2,500, 2,000 years ago, what is the prevailing faith in Greco-Roman culture? Greek and Roman gods. But this shows a place where Jews are welcomed, and more importantly, they're allowed to worship. The menorah, and we'll see that again when we get to Ephesus, it shows that they are there. You're going to see some stuff up in the on the rock on top, but you can't necessarily see it from where we're looking right now. Next. And, again, somebody wanted their likeness because they didn't have the iPhone. Next. Okay. You are probably one of 1,000 people right now on the planet that have ever seen this. And the reason I say it is because this sculpture and the one next to it was just recently found within the last 20 years. And this picture is not even in the books. I didn't see the picture where it said don't take pictures, and I'm standing here doing this. This is a typical statue of a Greek man who would be over his remains after he had died to show that he was powerful and had privilege. Look at the intricacy there. Look at the intricacy of how wonderful that was. And it's been preserved because it was under some special kind of dirt or something. But it looks pretty good. So, yeah, I got that out with anybody finding out. Next. It's a couple thousand. Yeah. So we're going to have a whole bunch of just like stuff you have in your kitchen. Keep going. You got to have your oil and your vinegar. These are toys, but these are also things that you would keep around your house for your gods, for your family, because you're going to have a picture. Next. These are children's toys. Anybody ever play, what's the game? Jacks. Yeah. You spin the thingy. It started in Greece. Next. And there were a couple soldiers too. Keep going. Next. Okay. Now we're getting outside and we're getting into the Corinth ruins. Keep going. Next. Okay. So we're going to come to a place, again, this is an agora, this is a marketplace, and I want you to imagine it's full of people. There are tradesmen all over the place. People are selling their stuff. There are 90 or so stalls to conduct your business, and it looks pretty good. Keep going. Now, here we have the Temple of Apollo. Now, if you go into 2 Corinthians, and this is where Paul starts talking about what shall we do with animals that have been sacrificed to Greek and Roman gods. Should we eat them? Now, I want you to imagine it's a Tuesday. You take your goat, you go and sacrifice it to Apollo, and then there's this one guy named Paul who's sitting on the side, and he is a Jew, and he is surrounded by Jews, and he is saying, put away your pagan gods, but it's okay for you to have a pork chop because you just ate that goat. That's where this comes from. This is the place where there was a division in the people of should we or should we not eat the remains of animals that have been sacrificed to other gods but still come into our bellies. Moving, wonderful, and this is where it comes from. Next. The agora, it continues. Next. Anybody ever see the movie The Life of Brian? Monty Python movie. It's a spoof about a guy named Brian who they think is the Messiah, who is taking on the heels of Jesus. And there's this one section that says, what have the Romans ever done for us? Aqueducts, clean water, roads, the arch. The Romans created the arch. Fundamental in architecture even today. That's one of the few things that are still standing even after thousands of years. Next. Okay, now we're looking at a first church made in Paul's name after the first century that celebrates Christianity. So now we're in past the first century because up until this point, who were the Christians? They're Jews. They're still Jewish. They haven't turned into Christians yet. after the first century, then it really starts to become a foundation. A church is made in Jesus' name, attributed to Paul right there. Next. Love God, love people, the end. And then we shared communion. We shared Holy Communion with one another in this one space, in this place that is fundamental to our Christian faith. Next. Keep going. And in that church, you can see the original, one of the original slabs that was carved out, identifying it as a Christian site. Next. And then that's one of the attributes to Paul. Keep going. All right, more on the agora. Keep going. Hi, Mom. Keep going. I found Carmen Sandiego. Yep, it blew me away. I couldn't believe it. This is the city with the background of what? The troops watching over the city, watching over anybody coming in through the sea. Next. Feta cheese with olive oil. That was the best Greek salad I've ever had. And then everywhere we went, we were told to try the house red or try the house white, because each place has its own different way of making. You know, it was okay. Keep going. All right, next. All right. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, me too, plant, me too. Next. Okay, again, small cities, beautiful town at the base of the Corinth. Keep going. All right, there's another monastery, another place to eat. It's one thing that I would love to have more in this country is to eat outside of a place. Once upon a time, we used to do that. Now we're back in Athens, and this is, you ever heard of a place called the Christmas Tree Shop? Or maybe it was bigger, more East Coast, but all they would do is sell Christmas wrap all year long. Well, they have one in Athens. Keep going. Keep going. Where are you going? I'm going to stop. No, go back. You got to read that. That's the name of the bar. Yeah, keep going. Very small roads. Keep going. More at the bottom of the Parthenon, Acropolis. Flowers are all over the place. Next. Listen to music. Go to galleries. Read books. Dance. Buy art. Smell flowers. Travel the world. Take risks. Be uncovered. Nude. Free. We ate at this place called Naked. We didn't know that until we sat down. And then they gave us the menu. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. Keep going. We had some of the best food on the whole trip. It was just like good old-fashioned, you know, you go to that place that's out off the beaten path to find the really good meal. That's where we ended up. That was homemade pancakes with feta cheese and maple syrup. Next. Next. That was really good. Next. And I sent that to my wife. Aww. Next. Keep going. Another monastery. All right, now we have left Greece and now we're in Izmir, Turkey. Imagine this is Turkey. This is the farthest you can go in Western Asia. That's the Aegean Sea. That was right out my window. When you think of Turkey, what do the people look like? Just what do you think? Turbans. What else? Darker skin. What else? No, come on, people. Come on. Huge, okay. Asian population, right? Because now we're in Asia. They look like us. They look like us. And this is something that our tour guide was explaining to us. The Turks in like the 13th and the 14th century, when they migrated west to the area where we were, they also had a lot of blonde and red and green eyes and blues. But yet, if you go a couple hundred miles south, you start to get into Syria and Lebanon and ultimately into greater Israel, and the color changes. I was surprised. I was surprised in that because I really thought they would be darker. Because in Greece, green, olive skin, it was a big wake up. So, next. Okay. It hadn't rained until we got there, but it was a good time. Now we're in a place called Ephesus. All right, next. Okay, next. All right. Ephesus was once upon the second largest city in the Roman Empire. Ephesus sits on the western part of the peninsula of Turkey. Ephesus used to, key word, be right on the Aegean Sea, and I'll tell you more about that. We're walking into the Ephesus ruins. Next. Okay. We're still at the Agora. We're still at a place where business is being conducted. People are shopping. Greeks, they're Romans, there are Jews, there are people from all over the world, and they all get along until this guy Paul shows up. Next. Okay. Now, go to the next slide. All right. What do those look like? Huh? These are pipes. These are pipes. In this part of the world, seismic activity is normal. And what happens is the Greeks and the Romans, they actually began modern plumbing. And what they did is they built pipes to send water throughout the city. But when you put a pipe in the ground and it's made out of ceramic and the earth shakes, what happens? Exactly. So then they started to use them made out of lead. Exactly. What did it do? Killed everybody. Once upon a time, you may have heard the story, what destroyed Rome itself? Lead pipes. They just didn't know what happened. These are the original lead pipes which have been dug up. I also want to remind you, this site that we go to in Ephesus is 10% of 100% that has only been excavated within the last 100 years. There is a modern money that is going towards these excavations, but it goes on for miles, and it hasn't been turned over yet. This has all been taken care of and removed with the dirt, the silt from the rivers, but also the ocean. Next. Keep going. Okay. Pillars are everywhere. Next. That's part of an amphitheater. Next. Okay, that's another amphitheater. You can get up, you can walk around. Anybody like going to a basketball game? What do? What do you bring to sit on? A comforter or something? That's what they did too, because marble is not soft. Keep going. Meow. All over the place. All over the place. Keep going. All right. Keep going. More stalls where people were conducting business. Keep going. All right. This is a frieze that basically stood outside a doctor's office. And it is recognized by a Dr. Howe. Can you see it? The snake around the staff. We call that today what? The caduceus. And that represents medical, right? That is where this comes from. I'm going to call this guy Dr. John. Dr. John, people knew this because not only did they know who he was, but this identified, and even if you didn't speak Latin, or you didn't speak Greek, or you didn't speak anything else, you at least knew that this is where you could go to get made well. Next. Okay, keep going. Nike. Nike is a Roman god. She would fly around, and this is one of the original and best pieces of the Ephesus dig, where it is so, she was probably a good 6 feet across, about yay big, and she's right there on the main street, and she's given protection. Next. More places to live and to work. Keep going. Okay. Here is the Gate of Hercules. This is important. Do you see how narrow it is? It's about yay big. Hercules is who? Greek god of what? Protection. He went after the lions. He was big and he was strong, but he also did what? He provided protection. The Herculean gate was made specifically so you could not get a chariot in or out of the city. Now, why is that important? Because if somebody is coming from another place and they want to take you over and they can't get their own resources in the front door, that protects you. Next. More Greek on the wall. Keep going. All right, now we're looking down the main, this is basically Broadway of Ephesus. It's going to go all the way down. You're going to see stuff on the side, but you're going to see what's referred to as the Library of Celsus at the end. This is the big piece of the dig. It was raining, and that's been there for about 2,500 years, and it was still slippery. Keep going. Okay. Here we have an ancient artifact identifying Christians. This is a piece right here. If you write certain letters or certain words inside of this, I don't even want to know what you call it. I don't want to call it a pentagram or an anagram or something, but it's an identifier, and it was on the person's front door. And if you're a Christian and if you know what this sign is, how's that going to make you feel? It's going to make you feel welcome, right? It doesn't have the fish or it doesn't have a cross yet, but it has something that identifies that this is a Christian home. Next. Okay, keep going. Okay, this is part of the pool and fountain dedicated to Emperor Hadrian. Keep going. This part's funny. The aristocracy, the people that were privileged, the people that had their money, not only did they show it, but they lived on the roads that only they could walk on. So the rest of the common people and the slaves had to go somewhere else, and they would walk on their roads that were literally painted going forward. Keep going. The next one's going to show. We'd like to show off that we have our, really good lawns or something or whatever, but I thought that was a little bit over the top personally, so keep going. Yep, keep going. All right, more. Keep going. What's that look like? Yep. Communal baths, communal toilets. So I want you to imagine, especially the men in here, this is for the men that are loaded. This is for the aristocracy. And if you're a Greek or a Roman during this time, there's a pretty good chance that you have slaves. And it's a cold February morning, and you tell your slave Andronicus, "Hey, I'm going to go down to the stall in a little while, but I need you to go sit on that stall for me so it's warm." I'm not making this up. I am not making this up. There were slaves, and their job was to sit on the toilet to warm it up for their men. And I took a picture of it. Next. Yep. The Library of Celsus, one of the 5 or 6 libraries throughout the known world where knowledge was kept. Ephesus, second largest city in the empire, they were there. Next. What do you notice? Eric, go to the next one. Go to next slide. Okay. What do you notice when you look at that? It's an optical illusion. The top half is smaller than the first half, but you really have to look at it to see it. And that was done intentionally to make it look bigger than it is. It's the same thing with the Parthenon. They told us when we were there is no 90-degree angles in the Parthenon. It is believed that when the Parthenon was put together and the columns were done, it would eventually come together like a pyramid in the heavens and join. So nothing was made at 90 degrees. The same with these. These are done as an optical illusion to make it bigger than it really is. Next. We saw that picture of the three menorahs when we were at Corinth. Well, now we're at the base of the library itself. There is a menorah that has been carved into the marble. Now remember, only 10% of the site has been excavated thus far. Our tour guide and a couple other people believed that within 20 or 30 yards off to the side, they believe that they're going to uncover someday a synagogue here for the Jewish inhabitants. And the synagogue during this time was what? That's where the Jews met. And who was a Jew? Paul. And Paul went to this place. Next. Keep going. All right. Some more. And that's another amphitheater. Keep going. Okay. One more. All right. One thing I want to talk about is over time, Ephesus was actually a port city. The Aegean Sea today is 2.7 miles from the city. And what happened is, over thousands of years, water that would run from the river would push its silt and push out. So it made dirt and made other things sprout up. So once upon a time, the city was right there. Now it's about 2.5 miles later on. They're trying to figure out, with the tax money that they take in as revenue, is it worth digging that back up to where the city is today, or just leaving it where it is? Maybe feed people or something, I don't know. All right, so now we're going to leave Ephesus, and we're going to go down, we're going to go down, and we're going to go to the Cathedral of St. John. All right, so John chapter, what is it? John, as Jesus is on the cross, and according to the Gospel of John, he looks to John, the beloved disciple, and says, woman, or he says, man, your mother. Mother, this is your son. It is believed that after Jesus had died, was resurrected, and ascended, John, the beloved disciple, who was supposed to be very, very young, took Mary, the mother of God, into his home. It is also believed that John and Mary escaped persecution and they went to Ephesus. This is the cathedral that has been built in John's honor. So, keep going. That's what Ephesus used to look like. Next. Okay, that's okay. Here is the Temple of Artemis, and the only thing that's left are 3 pieces of 1 pillar. The Temple of Artemis was actually larger than the Parthenon in Athens. Artemis was the goddess of, love. She did some things outside, the god of the hunt. But she had a very big presence, huge presence in this part of the world, and they built a temple to her. But as you look, what do you not see below that 1 column? What don't you see hanging around in the ruins? The rest of the ruins. All the stuff that's fallen over, right? Next. Okay. Here we have a mosque that has been created that actually honors Jesus Christ. here in this spot, and this is probably the only spot in the world where a mosque commemorates Christ, in the same place, 300 yards from a Greek goddess and 150 yards from a cathedral. In this part of the world, in Ephesus, there is such a value on woman, nurture, femininity, and fertility. And in this place, they celebrate that. And then the minaret that's in that you really can't see on the right side, it's being redone today. But this is an active mosque, right at the base of one of Christianity's greatest pieces. Next. Keep going. This is a piece of a refurbished column that is used for the monastery and the cathedral because, you know, something fell over, and if you know where the marble is, why not just take it? And that's exactly what they did. Next. And then this is the tomb of St. John. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But it's believed to be here. Next. Okay, keep going. And here is the baptistry. It's pouring rain, and we're learning about our baptism. I thought it was pretty cool. This is, once upon a time, everybody was fully immersed in baptism. Now we just sprinkle on their heads. What do you think? Should we go back to this? No? What's that? Babies, yeah, but okay, all right. This was great. We recommitted ourselves in our baptism, and we were at this place, a very holy place. Next. I like that, yeah. Next. All right, I'm gonna run through this. We went to a place where they did rugs. Keep going. We're a lot of time here. I want to finish up. Keep going. That's my friend Becca from. All right, you see the funny car? Yeah, that car is probably about 3.5 feet wide, 4.5 feet long. It's a perfect little spot. Again, we got to remember the sides of the roads in this place in the world. So, next. Yeah, looks like a Lego car. Ephesus is such a nice place. They make their own beer. Ephes. It was all right. Next. You are beautiful. You are loved. You are needed. You are alive for a reason. You are stronger than you think, and you're going to get through this. Don't give up. Thanks, Snoopy. Okay. Now we're going to get to a town. Keep going. This is a town where we got to not only see the cats, but also to see the culture of the modern Turks. You know, it's a modern day tourist trap, and it was a lot of fun. Keep going. It's called Serenitsam. That's the name of the town. Next. Lot of influence in this area. In this place of Turkey, Turkey is a secular country. Secular meaning it is not run by a theocracy, meaning it is not run by the clerics as other parts of this place in Asia. Turkey is a democratic republic, but it has very large Muslim and Christian population. Keep going. Keep going. They sold a lot of wine in this town. Keep going. That dog looks happy. We went into a mosque. This mosque, beautiful. It was nice for the town. Beautiful designs, beautiful artwork. Keep going. Keep going. Anybody ever see the movie Troy? Brad Pitt plays Achilles. That's right. Man crush. Anyway, all of the gold, all of the ornate things that he and so many others were wearing was made by this jeweler here in town. And I got my wife some really nice stuff in here. Keep going. Beautiful. So let's talk about olives. An olive, yay big, can produce so much stuff. You ever seen an olive tree? They're very low, they're wide, and they're very bristly. And for a good olive farmer, it takes probably 100 years to get your best harvest, because it takes so long for the tree and the roots to get into the ground and give the best meat and the best oil. I wouldn't recommend going into olive harvesting, but it is a family business, and they're everywhere. Pistachios grow in the plains, olives grow in the rocky on the mountains. Keep going. Next. This is a 17th century Byzantine church. Next. Keep going. The all-knowing eye. There is a belief in this part of the world that evil lurks everywhere. But if you have this on you, it looks at you and it pushes away the evil. This is all over doorposts. It's on keychains. It's on food. I've got some on a couple of my jackets. These beads that I wear are very similar to it. It's just a protection device, and it's everywhere. Next. Another church. Keep going. Keep going. I bought that. Next. I needed something. Keep going. All right. I found this painting on the side of a house beautiful. You'll notice that there's the cage where the door is open and the birds have escaped. But have they really escaped? Do they feel comfortable here? They're still together. They're enjoying themselves. I think that can tell us a lot about ourselves. Keep going. Another cat. Yep, keep going. We had some time, so my friend and I, we went and drank some wine and talked about life. Next. Next. Coca-Cola in a bottle. Everywhere. Coca-Cola in a bottle. Around here, you're only going to get them from Mexico. It just makes it taste better. I don't know. Keep going. Okay. Now, getting back to the story of John and Mary. John, who may have been the beloved disciple that is acclaimed for the Gospel of John, and John of Patmos, who wrote the revelation of Jesus Christ, may have been the same person. And it is understood that John, while in exile on the island of Patmos near Turkey, was revealed by God the book of Revelation. The 7 churches, which we were very close to, and he was also maybe taking care of Mary. We don't know. But if Ephesus is here and this is the mountain, Mary lived on top. We're going to go to the place of the Theotokos. Keep going. Theotokos means mother of God. This is the believed place where Mary, the mother of God, may, keyword, may have lived. And I don't want to take anything away from our Roman Catholic friends or ourselves in our mainline Protestant denomination. I don't think we give Mary enough credit. I really don't. But we were walking through here, and this is a shrine in her honor, and it is believed that this tree was big enough to cover her home so that if people came to look for her, they couldn't find her. This tree is old. Keep going. Couldn't take any pictures on the inside. Keep going. Mary is written throughout the Islamic Quran. Mary, as the mother of God, a prophet of God for the people, is believed to have been, and is in some places may still be appreciated as the mother of the prophet Jesus, and this tells us where she is named in that holy book. Keep going. Here are linens that have been written on that are prayers to Mary praying for so many things. This goes on for hundreds of yards. I'm taking a panoramic shot of this. Look at like a piece of, I mean, like if you go home and you rip off a t-shirt or something and you write a prayer, people come here from all over the world and tie it up to here so that Mary will hear them. Blew me away, the faith in this. It's fascinating. Keep going. And then we got to go eat. Yep, keep going. Now we're flying back to Istanbul. Keep going. You know what? I still believe if you say yes, no, may I please, and ask somebody at the airline counter, you smile and say, hey, how you doing today? How's your day? They will give you that seat. I wish I had it on the way home, but, you know, yeah, people were walking by me and they're like, jerk. Yeah. It was nice to just do this. So, plus a 777's nice. And that's the trip. That's the trip. We came home. That went a little longer than I anticipated, but anybody have any questions? This is actually a trip that I was thinking, would you be willing or like maybe to explore having an opportunity of doing 10 days in this part of the world, seeing these sites, and witnessing this? And I'm just going to leave it there. Because it involves a commitment. And I got to tell you right now, it's going to be about $4,800. But if we get 25 or 30 of you, you'll cover my costs. So